In today's video, we're talking about a crime called false reporting to a law enforcement agency. This is a common offense in Arizona. We often see it tacked on to other charges. So for example, somebody's charged with a DUI. During the investigation, if there's some less than truthful information that comes out during the conversation, the police will charge that person not only with a DUI, but they'll tack on a false reporting charge. Today we're going to run through what the law says. We're going to run through a quick note about how this works. Then we're going to talk about some of the penalties and the defenses. But let's dive into it. Let's take a quick look at the statute. The statute is 13-2907-01. There's 01, 02, 03, 04. There's different versions of false reporting for different fact scenarios, but this is by far the most common one that we see. So let's dive into it. First and foremost, any statement under this statute needs to be made to a law enforcement agency. Some agency in the capacity of doing law enforcement. The statute will go into it a little bit further, but really what you're talking about is police. If you're making a statement, the statement needs to be made to the police. It needs to be made knowingly. Okay, I have it underlined here. Any statement that you make to the police, think of knowingly. So a person has to knowingly know the following. First and foremost, they have to know that they're making a false, a fraudulent, or an unfounded report or a statement to that law enforcement agency. So if you don't know that it's false or fraudulent, that's going to be a key defense. We'll consider that again here at the end of the video. The other way that a person can be charged with false reporting is if they are knowingly misrepresenting a fact for the purpose, double underline here, for the purpose of interfering with the orderly operation of law enforcement or for misleading an officer. So you have to knowingly misrepresent a fact for the purpose of interfering with an officer's law enforcement obligations or to mislead an officer. Either one of those things happen, they can charge you with false reporting. False reporting under Arizona is a serious offense. It's a Class 1 misdemeanor. If you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that Arizona has 3 different classifications of misdemeanor offenses. Class 1 is the serious, most highest level offense for misdemeanors that we have in Arizona. It's the same classification as a DUI or domestic violence offenses, so you can be charged with a DUI. The police will then tack on another Class 1 misdemeanor. It's essentially adding insult to injury. And so if you've been charged with a false reporting type of an offense, make sure that you take it seriously because it is the highest level misdemeanor that exists. It also doesn't look particularly good if you get convicted of it. Employers, anybody doing a background check, they don't want to see anything about false reporting or anything involving essentially lying to the police is how they're going to interpret it. Whether that's true or not, that's how many people will see a conviction for this. And if that impugns your honesty or your integrity, you may have difficulty getting that job or applying for that loan or doing whatever it is you do when you have a background check. I said it's a Class 1 misdemeanor. As I mentioned in the previous video, quick note about this. If you're charged with a DUI, and the officer asks you something about how much did you have to drink or have you been drinking any alcohol tonight, and many people are under the inclination, they'll tend to say, I only had 1, or I have not had anything to drink, I just had 2, but it was 3 hours ago and I'm fine to drive, and they'll make those statements. Well, what happens is the police will do their investigation. They'll take that person under arrest, they will take a blood sample or a breath sample, and when the blood results or the breath results come back and that person is above the legal limit, the police will say that the conversation you had with that officer admitting to 1 drink or 2 drinks or whatever, how many drinks it was, they will then say, well, the results don't match those statements, and therefore you gave them a false statement. They'll tack on another charge. So I have here in my notes here on the whiteboard that it's better to say nothing or to just tell the officer, I've been advised not to answer that question, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, I'm not going to be talking about any of those other things. I will give you my license, I will give you my registration and those types of documents, but I'm not going to be answering those questions because if you do give them something, it opens the door. They can come back and say, you misrepresented a key fact. You misrepresented the fact that you had more to drink than what happened in reality. They'll charge you with that crime. Not every prosecutor does this. Not every police officer wants to pursue these charges, but there are those around Arizona who will add on an additional charge. They'll stack as many as they possibly can. For some reason, that's just their style. So you want to be careful. It's much better to say nothing than it is to sort of bend or sort of fib the truth and just tell them, yeah, officer, I had one, because you think you can talk your way out of it. Probably not going to happen. Better to say nothing, invoke your rights, give us a call, we'll help you deal with the DUI. The defenses to this. So there are a couple ways you can do it. The first and foremost is you want to really contest what's called mens rea. Under the law, in this type of statute, you have to have a mental state and you have to have an action. There's these two elements to a criminal charge. Well, what is the mental state? So that is saying what is going on in a person's mind. And here we're talking about whether this was all done knowingly. Did a person knowingly make a false statement or an unfounded report or any of those things? Did a person knowingly misrepresent a fact, knowing that the fact was not true, knowing that it was false? And did they do it for the purpose of misleading an officer? Was there another purpose? Was there something else that maybe the report wasn't in fact unfounded? The officer just thought it was unfounded, but the reality is it wasn't. And there's other explanations that we can use to negate the knowingly element of this whole statute. If you can do that, the statute can't move forward because one of those two key elements fails. I sort of touched on it, but the other thing is the action. So what are you doing? Are you actually making a false statement, an unfounded report? Are you actually interfering with the orderly operation of the law? Are you actually misleading an officer? Did those things actually happen? So not only did your mental state, not only did you knowingly or purposefully not do any of that, you did not know it was false, you had good reason to believe there was an alternative explanation for it, you made this statement with no purpose of misleading the officer, but let's set that aside and let's say that they could prove that. Did you actually mislead the officer? Did you actually interfere with the orderly operation of law enforcement? If you can negate those two charges by saying that that was not done according to the statute, you can beat that charge entirely. Okay, there's no mens rea, there's no what's called actus reus, there's no mental state, and there's no action that happened. False reporting in Arizona, it is fairly common, not one of the most common offenses that we see, but we do handle criminal charges in virtually every court all around Arizona. So if you or a loved one has been charged with false reporting, give our office a call. We offer free case evaluations. We can help you through this process, make sure that you understand what you're facing, and give you a good analysis on what your obligations are to the court and how the process will work so that you are not walking away from this thing being convicted of a Class 1 misdemeanor. Give our office a call. We look forward to sitting down and speaking with you soon. Thanks for watching.